What's up, peace goddesses and peace gods? It is your girl, Goddess C here, back at it with another episode. And I hope you have been taking care of yourselves, mind, body, and spirit, because that is what it's all about. And I say that every week because it is so true. We've got to take care of ourselves to be able to take care of our ancestry and our lineage, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it today, guys. I am doing part 2 of how to connect with your ancestors. We did part 1 that got a great response. So be sure to check out that previous episode. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all the new followers. I want to say if you are coming back, welcome back to the podcast. Be sure to like this video if you're on Spotify. Go ahead and like it if you're on the other platforms. And if you are new to the podcast, welcome, welcome. You are in for a treat, okay? So we are growing. I'm super excited. You guys are responding to the content, to the episodes, and I'm really grateful for that because it is Spirit speaking through me, and I do my prayer and I speak with my ancestors before every episode to make sure that I'm delivering information to you guys that if you resonate with it, you can actually start to implement some of the steps inside of it, okay? So let's get a little business out of the way first. First and foremost, we are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, as well as Google Podcasts, and we're inside of the podcast index. So that is super exciting. This podcast is growing. So big things are happening with it. You can, of course, follow me on Facebook, TikTok, as well as YouTube now. Wait for more content. I got plenty of content to put up there, but we went ahead and got that channel started. So you can follow me on all of those places at Holistic, ANDAF. So that's holistic and spiritual as fuck. So be sure to check those out over there. And I'm also on Instagram as Holistic and Spiritual AF Podcast. Okay. So be sure to check me out for some different types of content over there as well to keep in touch, okay? So now that we have gotten that business out of the way, I'll be sure to have those links down in the description section. We can go ahead and jump into it. The last couple of episodes that I've had have been a lot longer than I planned on being, but I get long-winded. Like I said, Spirit speaking through me is a whole nother ball game, and I don't actually put myself on a time restraint because they don't understand like physical time in this simp ass 3D reality. Okay. So today we are going into part 2 of how to connect with your ancestors. In the first part, we actually talked about 3 easy ways that you could connect with your ancestors, just kind of starting from scratch. If you're like ground base zero, that you can actually implement. So be sure to check that out. Today, I want to talk about why it is important, or 3 important things that you should know about connecting with your ancestors. Okay. So like I said, I didn't rush and do this episode, even though I wanted to. I was itching to do it. I wanted to make sure that I connected with my ancestors and my spirit guides to make sure that I was giving relevant information and content to you guys so that you can, get something out of it and actually, make some changes and start to connect with your own ancestors. Okay. So I've got my nifty little phone here so that I can actually stay on track because your girl get to rambling, like I said. Okay. So important things that you want to know about connecting with your ancestors. We're going to go through part 1, 2, and 3 of this, and then we'll also have a final part to this entire series, which will end up being part 3. So number 1, you want to understand that just because you haven't actually started connecting with your ancestors doesn't mean that they have not been working in your life already and that they haven't already been assisting you and guiding you. This is very important. Why? Because particularly as Black Americans from the African diaspora in America, the United States, the corporation, we have been so discombobulated and disconnected from self. We have been taken away from our original cultures, our original religions, our original languages, our original foods, everything, our original climate, a whole lot of different things, and for the past 400 or 500 years. Okay, so we're completely disconnected from anything that we can identify ourselves with. So that's why it's so important to connect with your ancestry, because once you have knowledge of self, or Sankofa, which is a Swahili word, which means to go back to where you came from to know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you came from, it makes it very difficult to be able to see ahead or to even function in the now, in the present, okay? So you got to understand that discombobulating and pulling these people away from their culture, their foods, their religions, or their spiritualities, just everything that they know was all intentional, okay? And then to create something else where we are attaching and adopting some sort of a culture that really isn't ours, that actually doesn't accept you, will create all kinds of trauma and dysfunction in your spirit self or yourself, okay? So that you're so disconnected from spirit, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you come from, you don't know why you have certain traits and certain abilities inside of you. Very little of your family actually can provide you with that type of information. It leaves you feeling lost. It makes it so that we are constantly striving to be something, a lot of us something that we're not, okay? Or we're attaching to things that are not of us, okay? Or are of our lineage, okay? So this was all intentional and by design, when this new world order and system that we're living today came into play, okay? So I've bumped into, and myself included at certain points in times, Black Americans who are jealous, somewhat jealous of our diasporic brothers and sisters that have that connection. And I bumped into certain brothers and sisters and cousins of the diaspora, Caribbean, African, that are egoist or a little conceited about the fact that they have that and we don't, okay? So there's this disconnect and this kind of like energetic internal war that we have going on amongst one another, which absolutely needs to stop, because when you have knowledge of self, you recognize that we're all cousins. We're all related, okay? We're just related and living in different places. That's why if you put a group of Caribbean people, African people, and Black American people in a room together and they didn't say anything, you wouldn't be able to tell who was who. Okay, you might be able to tell who was who based on some of the things that we were wearing, but if they were all wearing, let's just say, clothes that we wear over here in the US, which a lot of them do now, you wouldn't be able to tell who was from Jamaica, who was from Haiti, who was from Benin, who was from the Congo, or any of those different things, okay? So we really need to cut that out, because that was also by design as well, to get us to stay disconnected from one another and to never unite and just never have this sense of self, okay? To recognize that we are spirits having a human experience, and none of that shit matters because we didn't actually create that, okay? We as indigenous people of the earth did not create, oh, you're darker, you're lighter, your hair nappy, you got 4C, you got 2C. This was all conditioning that was placed upon us to continue to pull us away from who we are in ourselves, okay? So once you have no knowledge of self, you don't know who you are. Like I said, you start to become a chameleon and start to adopt these different thought processes, belief systems, things that have nothing to do with you, and you still feel empty inside of this so-called place that's home, that never accepts you, that never treats you equal, that is systemically oppressing you in every which and turn and corner, whether that be school systems, whether that be jobs, whether that be banks, different types of institutions that also participate in that, okay? So connecting with your ancestors, it's important to know that even if you haven't been connecting with your ancestors, they have been working with you. They have been guiding you regardless. Our ancestors understand, okay? They know what it is that we're encountering and what it is that we're rising above, okay? So they still want to see you succeed. They still want to see you empowered in your life, and they very much want to help you, because helping you helps the whole lineage, okay? Helping you to get back to understanding who you are and helping you to be able to understand different abilities that lie within your DNA, and as well as your spirit, because you are a spirit having a human experience, then you become empowered. Then you have this sense of knowledge of self, where, and pride, most importantly, where nobody can take that away from you. I don't care if somebody killed you today, you cannot take the pride away from a person, okay? So there was a lot of work done since this new world order in order to beat that out of us mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And as a result, it created a massive amount of trauma within inside of our DNA. So we have to correct that, okay? This is not something that you're going to be able to go outside and ask other people to do, because they're just not going to do it. And for those who possibly can help, if they are people of color who from other indigenous cultures, they got their own shit, okay? They got their own shit that they're dealing with, and tragedies that they dealt with as a result of this type of oppressant, supremacist, white supremacist, design that we're living in right now. Okay. So that's just the reality and that's just the facts of it. So that's why I'm particularly talking to Black people of America, because we have been completely ripped away. Whereas some people who are Caribbean, they have some sort of connection through things that were passed down in their lineage, where we have things that were passed down in our lineage from slavery. Okay. A lot of us are carrying a religion that was passed down from slavery to keep us enslaved. Okay, so there's a lot of discombobulation there. Okay, so that's number one. You don't need to be jealous. You don't need to think that, oh, I think I'm all this and that because I have connection with my ancestors and a working relationship with them. Okay, because you have access to the same thing. Your ancestors very much love you and want to assist you as well. And you also have to think about the fact that you too will be an ancestor as well. Okay, so you'll want somebody venerating your name. You'll want somebody remembering you and the good things about you as well, because as above, so below. Once we're finished with this physical reality, we're still on a spiritual journey as spirits. Spirits are immortal. We don't die. Okay, physically, we will die and leave this earth of this life. Okay, but we're not going to leave the existence, as immortal beings. So just knowing that you're immortal and that you are of God and you have God expressing abilities inside of you, that you have access to the spirit realm, your ancestors, spirit guides, that's an amazing, empowering thing right there. Okay, so you don't have to think that because your cousin has more close connections to it because of what part of the planet they happen to land on or the boat took them to. That's the only difference between us and them, is that their boat went in a different direction or somebody was sold to a different plantation. We were all in the same type of boat together. Okay, so that's what we need to figure out, and we need to start really getting together and uniting as diasporic people, which we are getting better about, I must say that. So that's number one. Very important to know that if you haven't been connecting with your ancestors, they have been guiding you and working in your life anyway. Okay. Also important to know that when you do start to connect with your ancestors, you will create a stronger connection and relationship with them, and they are going to be able to assist you better because now you're working in harmony. It's no longer they're just helping you. You don't know what's going on. There's no energy being exchanged. You're taking, they're weak, that type of thing. They're never being fed. They can't, their voices can't get any louder. Your family can't heal. We just have somebody else and continue that on for another 300-400 years. Okay. So connecting with your ancestors is going to allow you to get more work done, and help to heal some of those generational traumas and curses faster. Okay. Very, very important stuff. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, is connecting and working with your ancestors closely has nothing to do with your religious or your spiritual denomination. That's very, very important. And the reason why is because a lot of people shy away from connecting with their ancestors or even starting the journey because they feel like it goes against God or it goes against Christianity or it goes against, or it's devil worship and all of these crazy shits that they made up about a spirituality that they did not understand. Here's my cat, guys. So that being said, the most important part to understand about this is, um, our ancestors were indigenous peoples of the earth. Okay, we were the creators of spirituality. Everything that we did was in conjunction and connection to nature. It was in connection to nature. It was in connection to God. It was in connection to the planets, the moon, the stars, the oceans, the earth. You name it. I mean, we gave reverence to God in so many different ways, and that just branched out based on what village you lived in, what part of the world that you lived in. So there were people doing different things that were very similar, but they were different based on their culture, maybe the offerings that they gave, or how they worshiped, or how they praised. So it does not matter what currently you chose as your spiritual connection and way of giving reverence to God. Your ancestors are still going to work with you. Okay, you can still work with your ancestors. Okay, they're not here to come here and change your religious belief systems, because if it's working for you, it's working for you. What they're here for is to help to guide you on your spiritual journey, to help you to remember who you are as a spirit being, and to help you to break some generational curses and trauma so that the lineage gets better and better and better. And this goes into healing of generational trauma, healing of generational curses, incorporating incorporating and amassing generational wealth, being able to have certain types of ownership to right a lot of the wrongs that have been done to us as a people. So that's very important, because a lot of people just won't even start the journey because they think that working with the spirit realm is working with the devil. That's absolutely just absurd, because you can't, or that it doesn't exist, based on some false religious belief system that they actually adopted that comes from slavery. Now, most of these people that have adopted this type of thought process don't even really know about what it is that they're actually believing in. Okay, so they're believing in something that was given to us as slaves, because before that we were still doing our shit. Our ancestors was like, I don't know what the hell that is, we can't even understand what they're talking about. You know what, we about to get out here up under the moon and stars and have a circle. You know what I'm saying? We're about to build this fire and raise up and call the ancestors. They had been having interaction with the spirit realm. Okay, now the oppressors could not understand what the fuck they were doing. Okay, they were like, what in the hell are these people doing? These people are jumping up and down and hooping and hollering and shaking and doing all these types of things and going into trance and all of this stuff. And let me tell you something, we still do that today inside of churches. Okay, so to deny the fact that there's a spirit realm, that there is life after this physical mortality, is ludicrous. And it's also very contradictory. Okay, because when a person is out there having the Holy Ghost, something is happening, something is up in them. Okay, so we can't just be like, oh well, that's the devil on them outside, but inside a church it's the Holy Ghost. I mean, they're giving you, they're telling you what it is. Okay, there's access and connection with the spirit realm that is making connection with this physical being. Okay, so why in the world would our ancestors not also have an existence after they've transitioned? Okay, that's why a lot of us don't say died, we say transition, because basically they transitioned from this physical mortal existence here on earth into the immortal spirit realm. Okay, so what are they doing? You know what I'm saying? What are they hanging out, in this this heavenly realm? No, they're there to assist you. They're there to help you. They're there to help you, to guide you, so that you can remember how powerful you are. Okay, and so the last thing they worried about is who goes to church and who don't. Okay, like I just said, they understand. They understand where we are and what the time frame is and what's going on and what it is that we're trying to help people to get back to. Okay, so if you tap into your ancestors and it creates some sort of connection to a different type of spirituality that's more resonant with inside of your DNA, then that's so be it. You know what I'm saying? But to not even try because of a faith-based system that came from slavery, that says that to do that is wrong, when all we've been done is wronged by these same people, it's just like, you got to come on, you got to think about it better than that. I mean, you got to come with something more, a better reason than that. Okay, so that's number two. You just want to understand that working with your ancestors does not matter like what religion you are, what spirituality you've chosen. Like I described in some of my other episodes, my journey led me through all different types of spirituality. I was in Buddhism, I was doing yoga, I was doing meditation, I even dibble dabble with Wicca for a while. I did science of mind, I did so many different things. And all that did was give me a connection to my spirit. It gave me a access and an understanding that, hey, there's something more than just going to school, working, grocery shopping, having kids, getting married, and that's it. There's much more purpose and design to this life than just this physical reality. And so as I went to explore that, I began to get the actual proof of that in many different religions and spiritualities. I never really was big on religion, so I would say definitely spiritualities. Everything that I rocked with, because that's resonant in my DNA, was spirituality. Like I explained, I grew up as a child with a very strict religious background, so I had my fair share and taste of that, and it was never for me. But spirituality was something that I could get behind. Now, spirituality is a lot more work involved, self-discovery, and action steps involved than a faith-based system. Okay, a faith-based system is a feel-good type of system that does not require a lot of work. And that's why I say a lot of times people can be in this particular faith-based system and not have a clue what's really going on with it, because they have someone who's telling them what to think, what to believe, what's wrong, what's right, and that's it. And then on top of that, they're coming from a few verses inside of the Bible, okay? So if you actually broke your Bible down, your Bible has a whole lot in there that's not being discussed. The Bible has a lot of deep scriptures and meanings inside of it, and that should be taken metaphorically in order for you to break that down and process that on a spiritual level. But somehow the only parts that get accessed are the religious parts, are the dogmatic parts. And over time, once you start to push and drill that into a person, okay, drill that into them, okay, like I just said, our spirituality was taken away and we were handed this. And the whole reason for that was to control, okay? The etymology behind the word religion means to bind. And so etymology is the study of words, okay? If you break down what the word itself means, it means to bind. Where so religion binds for the most part, okay? People to one concept, one thought process, and that's all. And now that may work for you on a spiritual level if you're taking it spiritually. But if you believe in it because that's what my grandmama did and that's what my mama did, and I don't want to be the black sheep and I don't want to be the one that's going to be, let me tell you something. If you are living this lifetime and you're starting to connect with your ancestors and you didn't get that from your mama and your grandmama, you are the black sheep. So go ahead and get ready for that, okay? You're going to have to be that one that's willing to be courageous enough to access your ancestors and see where that leads you. Okay, so that's number two. Just know this: they don't care about what religion and spirituality you choose because it all leads you to your spirit self. Okay, once you start to connect with your spirit self, it won't be so strange to be connecting with the spirit realm because you'll be doing it on a daily basis and recognizing that you do it on a daily basis anyway. Okay, number three is working with your ancestors does not mean that you don't believe in God. Okay, this had to be said, and I'm so glad that they brought this one up because I was like, yeah, a lot of people assume it's kind of similar to number two, that because you work with your ancestors and you have a working relationship with them and connection with them, that, oh, you must be against God. It could not be further than the truth for me. Okay, working with my ancestors and connecting with my ancestors pushed me to God. Working with my ancestors as I continue to progress and grow and get into traditional African spirituality, that's what I call it. I don't call it ARTs. I explained that in the last one, or ATRs or whatever. And the reason why is it's not resonant in my DNA. Okay, it's not resonated in my lineage. Okay, I went to my ancestors about that. And I was like, well, why don't I say? They was like, we don't do religion. We do spirituality. And that's how I've always been. So I'm not going to force myself to say something that's unnatural for me, because I also feel like that's a bit of a trick bag as well, because we're still putting in the etymology of that word, which means to bind. Therefore, you start to act in a dogmatic way, like my way is the only way. This is the only way it can be done. And that's just not been my experience. And that has not been what I've had evidence of. Okay. So that's why I say it's important for you to go and seek out these things, because you're going to get information as it pertains to your lineage, okay? So my ancestors actually pushed me to God. They pushed me to having a relationship with my higher power and being able to bring in and put into perspective the different roles of my creator, God, the different God, goddess, the fact that there is no gender involved with that great spirit, the functions that this particular creator has of all and everything that there is, as well as the working relationships that I have with my spirit guides, my ancestors, and other entities as well in the spirit realm that assist me on my journey of life as a spirit, and a spirit having a human experience. Okay, so for me, particularly with doing root work, they pushed me to the Bible. I was like, that right there. I mean, this is how I know this stuff works, okay? I was so anti-religion because I connected the Bible with religion that I just didn't even want nothing to do with a Bible, okay? I was like, I don't want no Bible. I can't tell you how many Bibles I had that I either left somewhere, gave away somewhere, and I will say it, threw away, okay? That's where I was at, practicing and growing closer to my ancestors, getting closer to God push me to the Bible, but in a different way, like I just described. We'll probably do an episode on that because that's wow, some of the stuff that I got out of the Bible. there was a scripture that I was reading. I'm going to have to find that scripture, guys, before I just shout this one out. But if you're a Bible reader, go ahead and drop that down in, in the comments, because it definitely came from the Old Testament. But it talks about a story. And I want to say it was, I don't want to misquote no names, child. See, I don't get all up in it like that. But anyway, there was a scripture in there where God raised an army of the dead to help. I want to say it was David. It had to be somebody else, to fight off, to fight basically. So I was like, what? God raised an army of the dead to help this biblical character fight off. I mean, I was like, yo, if that doesn't say everything in it, all evidence of spirit life, of that being connected with God as well, the fact that immortality is a real thing if you're coming from a spiritual perspective, making it connect with metaphysics, as above, so below. I mean, it was connecting so many dots. Okay, there's so much, and I particularly enjoy the Old Testament the most because there's so much hidden information inside of that book. So definitely understanding that connecting with your ancestors does not mean you don't believe in God, particularly if you're doing a root work. Okay. Despite what you may see out there on social media, which looks all glittery and gold, and everything that glitter ain't gold, baby. But for me, God has to be at the forefront of it all. Okay. And I know quite a few root workers out there that get that. Okay. As a fact, you don't want to be dibble dabbling out into the spirit realm without that. Okay. So in part 3, we're definitely going to talk more about protections and another reason why you want to have your ancestors, because your ancestors got your back. Okay. And once you have a working relationship with them, you will know who you're working with and not just be working with any old type of entity pretending to be your ancestor. Okay, because this shit is real. It's important to understand that this is not just a faith-based system where you have to show up somewhere, you hear somebody motivate you and make you feel good for the week, and you dress nice and the music is great, and then you go home and act an ass and don't do shit to actually help to elevate your family. That's not what this is about. This is about work. This is about building a relationship with your ancestors. This is about activating abilities. This is about healing generational curses and trauma in your family. This is about elevating your ancestors before you, elevating your ancestors in your generation now, and helping to continue that forward so that you guys can have a better existence as more ancestors are being born on a daily basis, okay? And understanding the power of you, becoming empowered. That's the most powerful part about it. We started this thing off talking about how beaten down the African people of the diaspora had been, how we had been pulled apart to the point where we don't get along with each other, where there's jealousy and all of these things within inside of tribes. Okay, we forget what villages we come from, what tribes we come from, what spirituality that we practice, and things like that. So, you know, you take that away from somebody for 400 to 500 years, there's going to have to be a turning around period, an understanding. Okay. So, with that being said, guys, I hope you got some value out of that. The 3 things that we talked about today, and of course, you can just go back and listen to this again. We're going to have a part 3, and we're going to be going in. That's going to be the final part of this series, because I feel like it's so important to understand that. You know, these 3 things. Like I said, I went ahead and talked to my ancestors. I talked to God, and I was like, hey, you know what? Get this message out, okay? So number 1 was, just because you haven't been connecting with your ancestors doesn't mean that they have not been working with you. Doesn't mean that they don't want to help you. It doesn't mean that they haven't already been guiding you. The fact of the matter is if you haven't been working with them, they can't help you as much, okay? They can't help you to the next level and be able to possibly make some real changes with inside of your family. Okay. So number 2 is going to be connecting with your ancestors and working closely with them. Does not matter what religion and spirituality you choose. Okay. You don't have to quit and stop it at what it is that you're doing if it's working for you. Okay. If you have nothing, that you're working with to start with, then don't be surprised if you find something based on your lineage, okay? And number 3, working with your ancestors does not mean that you don't believe in God. It's actually the contrary. The more you start to connect with the spirit realm, the more you start to connect with the great spirit of all there is, okay? You just recognize how many resources that God has given us on this planet, as it says in the Bible, for us to use. Like I said, the way that I look at it is God is extremely busy, doing things like making sure your organs work and making sure that the ecosystem is where it should be at, and making sure that, the trees are growing when they should, and rain is coming down and sun. I don't have time to worry about whether or not you get that job. I don't have time to worry about whether or not you get that apartment. I've got you some representatives that's got your back. Call on them, use them. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're here for. That's what I gave you them for. So we have to be the ones who are not afraid of our own family, quite frankly. And that goes for the ones that come before us inside of our lineage and the ones who are spread out in the diaspora. As a matter of fact, we should be trying to understand one another even more, because what you'll find out is, oh my God, I'm Nigerian too. I have Benin blood too. My people came from New Orleans too. My people did roots too. No wonder I'm so into gardening. No wonder I'm so into candle magic. No wonder I'm so into whatever it is that you're into, astrology, numbers, things like that, because you'll start to access these latent talents and abilities with inside of your own DNA and your own lineage. All right, guys, so that is it. I just wrapped it up for us, and I will be loving to hear y'all's comments down in the comment section. I'm not quite sure what the question is going to be this week, but be sure to check it out at the bottom of this podcast, as well as the links. You can follow me at Holistic and Spiritual AF. That's AND spelled out, on both Facebook, TikTok, as well as YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and look out for more content on there. And I'm also on Instagram at Holistic and Spiritual AF. All right, guys, that is it. Until the next episode. Peace.